And of course, just a live picture one more time there in Glendale, Arizona, State Farm Stadium. Let's continue on, be joined right now inside of the venue by LiveNOW's own Austin Westfall. Austin, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. You were there, you were a witness to this entire service. What were the big takeaways? What did you learn? What did you hear?
I saw everything that you guys saw on the stream, but the feeling in this room, Andy, this was an incredibly emotional event. I'll read something that J.D. Vance said that I think sums this up, because this was ultimately a memorial for Charlie Kirk, but ultimately what they were trying to do is they were trying to celebrate this life and to bring some positivity into this event. The Vice President saying, the evil murderer who took Charlie from us expected us to have a funeral today. And instead, my friends, we have had a revival and celebration of Charlie Kirk. The Vice President speaking ahead of Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk. One of the standouts of her speech, the fact that she says that she forgives her husband's murderer. The room was completely silent. It was, looking around here, lots of people wiping tears from their eyes. Ultimately, Erica coming out here. Erica, by the way, is, as she mentioned during her speech, she is now taking over the reins as the CEO of Turning Point. Erica said that she looked at her husband's body after he was murdered. This was something we hadn't heard before. She explained the process of actually going, seeing her husband, seeing the wound in his neck that killed him, even making a light note out of it, a light gesture, saying that she noticed a single gray hair on his head that she never had the heart to tell him about when he was alive. And she said she also noticed a smile on his face while she was visiting him as well. Erica Kirk said while her husband died too early, he was ready to die. She says that he left this world without regrets, and he did 100% of what he could every day. Of course, we just heard the president wrap up his remarks. The president and Charlie Kirk have really become kind of synonymous with each other here in the state of Arizona. Anytime the president was campaigning here in the battleground state of Arizona, Charlie Kirk would be one of the opening acts for those presidential campaign events. President Trump was up in one of the boxes, pretty much up in the upper levels. There was one moment earlier, I think some of the cameras caught it on the live streams that you guys were watching. If not, social media was certainly buzzing about it. The fact that President Trump and Elon Musk were sitting with each other. They were being cool with each other. There were a few light moments during this memorial service. One that sticks out to me is Don Jr. Coming out and immediately starting to do an impression of his father, which, got the whole crowd to laugh. So it was really a somber event, Andy, but also the crowd was light, and the crowd was happy to make this a celebration of Kirk's life. There were a lot of undertones of faith with pretty much every speech that was given today. That was something that's very important to Erica and something that was incredibly important to Charlie Kirk. That was something that Erica spoke at length about, was her faith and about her relationship with her husband. She described what, the two of them went through, and she described what she felt made their relationship healthy. She described it in detail. She described basically her husband's mission statement. Andy, as I'm looking around now, this was once a packed State Farm Stadium. Now everything's empty. Everything's gone. There's only media here now, and the president is gone. Elon Musk did make a surprise visit. I don't think he was exactly expected to be here, but he didn't end up giving a speech, obviously. Elon Musk was actually making the rounds around here. He was walking all around the arena. Just looking through my notes here, I got to also say that those close to Kirk, they prayed, and the floors here were shaking while those Christian rock bands were playing earlier on, and some of them even played in between speakers. That was another big facet of this this event. Again, undertones of faith displayed throughout this event, Andy. And this was a long service. It was expected that this could be a couple hours long. I'm looking at the time here. Looks like this thing ended up being around 5.5 hours, Andy.
Yeah, it is obviously just profound to see the depth in which Charlie Kirk had an impact. But as it was noted by President Trump, that he really enlightened him about this senator from Ohio, that J.D. Vance, the now vice president, really getting him on the ticket and kind of starting his campaign. I think it was also noted early in the service that some people may have not have heard of Charlie Kirk prior to 11 days ago, and that was a horrific introduction to him. Just from your take, from what you saw from people, and we saw plenty in the Trump administration, they're very familiar with President Trump. Were the people there very familiar with Charlie Kirk? Were they just introduced to him during this horrific act less than 2 weeks ago? Were there a mix of people? Can you describe the people that attended today?
It's fair to say that people here appeared to be, for the most part, fairly politically active. These are people that follow the Republican Party. These are people that had fond feelings of Charlie Kirk. Like I said, there were lots of people who were touched by all of the speeches today, not just when Erica stepped up, not just when President Trump stepped up, not just when close friends like J.D. Vance and Don Jr. were speaking about their close ties to Charlie Kirk. There were moments in here where it seemed like there wasn't a dry eye in the House. One thing I will say is that if anybody in this arena or watching around the world, if anybody wasn't aware of this, they're aware of this now, that Charlie Kirk basically tried to make a career out of getting both sides to talk to each other. His point was, when both sides stop talking to each other, bad things happen. That's something that I think everybody here is taking home with them today, Andy.
Yeah, no, a lot of big takeaways from it, and as you mentioned, people kind of going out and onto the streets right now. We do have this kind of wide shot of what's to come, but obviously this felt somewhat like a campaign rally as well. President Trump teasing a kind of announcement, talking about autism, talking about the Presidential Medal of Freedom coming up a little bit later. Anything else outside the realm of this service that you noted?
You know what? There was some speculation, there were some murmurs, at least around the building before the event kicked off. There was some speculation that the Presidential Medal of Freedom was going to be handed out at today's event. We learned today that it's later going to be handed out at the White House. And then, yes, we did hear that there will be an announcement at the White House. President Trump classified it as perhaps one of the biggest health announcements in the country's history. It has to do with autism, he says. That's something that we're going to be tracking on LiveNOW closely tomorrow, no doubt.
Yeah, no, that is so very true. And my last question, Austin, before I let you go, because there are so many people saying we are all Charlie Kirk in this moment. And I know it's going to be Erica Kirk that kind of carries the baton on for him at Turning Point USA headquarters. She's now the CEO. Do you feel that there could be a singular person that comes from this, that carries the torch for Charlie Kirk in their way, or will it be a really group effort that they kind of spoke to at the service?
It seems like what they're aiming for is a group effort. They kept saying a version of this over and over. Charlie Kirk may be gone, but his message isn't gone. And they made it very clear today, the speakers who are affiliated with Turning Point that spoke today, they made it very clear. They're going to keep doing college events. They're going to keep doing their America Fest expos. They're going to keep doing what they do. And they're going to continue doing what Charlie Kirk has built. Just because Charlie Kirk is gone doesn't mean that Turning Point isn't going to keep going. That's the point they were trying to get across today. And honestly, and this was one thing that, it's escaping my mind exactly who brought this up. But it was somebody that was affiliated with Turning Point. They said that one of Charlie's visions was for Turning Point to play in a venue like a stadium. And that's something that happened today.
Yeah, and it was funny. I think Marco Rubio said it, that when Charlie Kirk pitched the idea of speaking to college kids, that it might be even better if you went to communist Cuba. That one might be easier than speaking to kind of the youth of the group. And I also think it was Don Trump Jr. that mentioned the fact, the bravery to go out and speak at some of these venues when the crowds are not always on your side. Sometimes hostile venues that you have to go in and speak your mind. And you also just brought up another point that I want to ask you, because this was a very high-profile event. The security there, the level of a Super Bowl. Can you talk about that as all from your perspective, what you saw in terms of security? It felt like it went off without a hitch.
It felt like from in here like it went off without a hitch as well. The Phoenix Metro works in Pacific Standard Time, so the event started at 11 a.m. local time. We got here, video journalist Mike and I got here around 4 a.m. We left around 4 a.m., got here around 4:30, 5 a.m. So we got here 6 hours before the event started, and even then, the freeways were unimaginably congested. All of the surface streets within a mile or 2 mile radius of the stadium itself, completely gridlocked to the point of where the parking lot near the venue that we aimed to park in, we couldn't access it. It was just too gridlocked, and we needed to get to somewhere really quickly, so we ended up having to park a good amount away from the stadium and then walking over here. So that gives you an idea of how busy and how many cars and how much foot traffic there was. That gets me to the security piece of this. So while we were, again, about a mile or two away from the stadium, you already noticed there was an increased police presence. There were cops everywhere, not only doing, traffic control, but also, they're just keeping an eye on everything going on. This is a major event, Super Bowl style security, as you mentioned. As we got closer and closer to the venue, you started seeing more agencies like Secret Service, seeing Secret Service guys everywhere. When you were checking in, you were actually checking in through TSA agents like you would at the airport. They weren't kidding when they said that this was going to be TSA-style security. You went through a TSA-style security with a magnetometer and everything like that. The media specifically went through 2 different rounds of sweeps with guards sniffing everybody's bags. The actual protocol for the attendees who filled this 70,000-some seat stadium, they all went through that same TSA security level. So I say all that to say, Andy, that this place was incredibly locked down. You could feel it once you got within a couple miles radius of the place, and I think I would agree with you. I felt like it went off without a hitch as well. It felt that way from inside.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like anything, no commotions, no chaos, and obviously concerned about just the stuff that's left outside, but that obviously taken care of by different personnel there. Austin, I'll leave the floor with you one more time before I let you go, before you kind of get back on the road. What else do you have on your mind? The floor is yours.
Here's what's going to be interesting to see moving forward is we're going to see Turning Point move forward, and it's going to be under Erica Kirk's leadership. So I think a lot of us are curious to see, does this thing carry on in the exact same way? There's also a number of Charlie's closest confidants that appeared on stage today. And again, every indication points to the fact that they intend to not only keep going, not only keep doing what they've been doing, but they intend to keep this thing growing. They put an emphasis on how Charlie was able to reach out to young Americans, to young men. So we're going to be watching how Turning Point moves forward. We're going to be watching how their new CEO, Erica Kirk, moves forward with the company. Andy.
Yeah, groundswell of support there behind Charlie Kirk. Literally vaulted him, potentially President Trump, to the White House in this most recent election. That, according to the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Austin. Thanks for joining us here on Live Now.
Thanks, Andy.